Welcome to my series titled The Cost of Corrupt Politicians to the Jamaican Economy. These are the subjects of today's discussion. Number one, corruption is the number one factor that is keeping Jamaica poor. Number two, top politicians see it as their given right to enrich themselves due to their position. Number three, how can the politicians make the right choices when they are benefiting from certain sectors of the economy? Four and final, is it wickedness why the politicians can't stop enriching themselves at the expense of the poor? Today's topic is, are most politicians in Jamaica inherently corrupt and latently wicked? Before I start, I want to put in a disclaimer. Now, in looking at a corrupt government, sometimes it would not be fair to just focus on the Prime Minister alone, especially when there are significant marginal demographic or class differences between the Prime Minister and his MPs, or in particularly between the Prime Minister and his councillors. This might have been the case with the first few prime ministers of independent Jamaica, who were middle-class white males. I think it is also safe to say that none of our past prime ministers, who are also national heroes, has enriched themselves personally while they were in government. Having said the above, let's get cracking. Now, the above might have led to a scenario where a white middle-class prime minister, such as Jamaica's first prime minister, Sir Alexander, giving large sums of money to MPs or councillors who were the descendants of slavery and oppression at the hands of middle-class white male. Now, these same middle-class white males, with all good intentions, are trying to help the lower class Jamaicans. They gave large sums of money for infrastructure purposes to the middle class Jamaican MPs and councillors. Then the money goes missing as the MPs and councillors seek to enrich themselves. This might have been seen at the time as taking something back from the white man, not realizing that they are stealing from their own people. This post is based on the video titled The Cost of Corruption, Jamaica Barrier to Prosperity, produced by a group of Jamaican scholars from the National Integrity Action, that's NIA, headed by Professor Trevor Monroe, head of National Integrity Action in Jamaica. I'll be mainly focusing on the 5 to 11 minutes section of that video in today's presentation. I will also leave a link to the NIA report in the description section of this post. Jamaica was the fastest developing country in the whole world for the decade of 1953 to 1963, which led to Jamaica receiving the largest loan to a developing country in the whole world in 1963. This is where Jamaica's downfall began. If anyone wants to know which is the most detrimental government that Jamaica has ever had, then look to the 1960s government led by Jamaica's first Prime Minister, Sir Bustamante. The money was meant to be spent on educational infrastructure projects such as building primary and secondary schools, etc. The effects of slavery and colonization were still affecting many Jamaicans, with a high rate of illiteracy in the population and an unskilled workforce, gave the need for this educational drive of doubling the country's primary and secondary schools, etc. The money that was allocated to the politicians to put in the infrastructure in their localities were misused and abused. Contracts were given out to friends of politicians who were not qualified to carry out the types of work that they were tasked to do. Some contractors were given contracts because those contractors would put some of the money in the politicians' pockets, etc. The result was that the largest loan in the world to a developing country was wasted for the most part. According to the National Integrity Action, that loan in 1963 is what has plagued Jamaica into poverty and destitution ever since. The loan did not accomplish what it intends to do, but it had to be paid back without the type of educated and skilled workforce that the loan was intended to produce, according to the NIA. The National Integrity Action also states that the low educational rate is what has led to the current violence and murder rate in Jamaica. For example, because some people does not have the vocabulary or language skill to reason things out, hence they resort to violence to tackle the simplest of matters, which sometimes leads to murder. In 1953, only 1% of the population were enrolled in schools. But in that pre-independence era, the government set out on an educational program and built quite a few schools and vocational training centers across Jamaica. Locals were trained to work in the bauxite industries, etc., making Jamaica the fastest growing developing economy in the whole world between 1953 and 1963. This is why some people said independence in 62 was a bad idea. It was the loan that Jamaica took out the year after independence under Bustamante government that destroyed Jamaica's growth and prestige, according to the NIA team. Maybe if Jamaica did not take out the independence from the UK in 62, then the UK would have carried on with the educational program that they were doing from 1953. Then Jamaica may not have needed that loan in 63, as we were still part of the UK. The problem now is that the politicians know all this, and they are still being corrupt. They are still stealing from the people. This then begs the question, why are some politicians inherently corrupt and latently wicked? Of course, greed would be the obvious answer, but this is highly immoral and destructive to the country's future. When one understands what has gone on before and how it affects the country, then we can start to understand why corruption in government must be dealt with quickly and severely. It is affecting the crimes and violence and murder rate in the country, not to mention the damage to Jamaica's economy. There is a verse in the Bible that tells us what happened when corruptions are not dealt with swiftly. It states, I quote, Because sentence against an evil work is not executed speedily, therefore the heart of the sons of men is fully set in them to do evil. Unquote. Ecclesiastes chapter 8 and verse 11. I'll leave that in the comment section as well. So when people see corruption at the top, their hearts will be set to do corrupt things at all levels in the society. Everyone will have their own answers as to which government has done the most damage to the Jamaican economy since independence. However, if we are listening to our scholars instead of our politicians, then we may choose to listen to Jamaica's National Integrity Action Board of Scholars and accept that it is the 1960s corruption in government that has cost Jamaica dearly. Not to lay the blame at our national hero, who was Prime Minister at the time, but to understand how serious corruption in government is and why it must be dealt with promptly. This is part 2 of my current theme. Look out for part 3. Thanks for watching this video. Support this channel. Please click on the subscribe button, share this video, and leave your comments below. God bless you. God bless the Jamaican Parliament, and God bless Jamaica. Until my next video, peace.